Let me ask you something. Do you ever want to just take a ride and see where you end up? I mean, if you have a long weekend, for example, or even just a Saturday and Sunday, do you know how far you get on a 750? Oh, man. And I don't mean like on the interstate or like the tollway. I mean just go, literally, wherever the road takes you, whatever road you take. Had that dream all my life. So, can you help me buy a motorcycle? No, really. Yes, for me, that's why I'm here. I'm really good at figuring things out. I think we can do this. I didn't always have the chair, but I've always had trouble walking. When I was a kid, it didn't matter. My parents drove me everywhere. But I also didn't really have anywhere else that I needed to go. No after-school job or anything. So when it came time to get my driver's license, there really wasn't a need. I mean, where would I go? Can we look at that motorcycle over there? That's like a Softail, right? I recognize that from the internet. Those are nice. I like those because they're like low slung, and I think I might actually be able to get on that one. It's not too high. Well, anyway, then I got to college, and my parents and I thought about it, and we figured I could walk from the curb to the classroom building and get up to the classroom, but the question was, how would I get from one building to another? And I don't really remember why or how it came about, but we wound up at a Honda store. And at the time, they had these three-wheel off-road motorcycles. They were called ATVs or something like that. And they were hugely popular. And I could kind of scramble up onto it a little bit, but if I laid down on top of it and really just like stretched myself all the way out on it, I still couldn't quite reach the handlebars. Not even close. My parents settled on a different three-wheeled scooter. It was called an Amigo chair, and it was a brand new type of device. It was 3 wheels, 1 in the front, 2 in the back, very small, smooth rubber wheels, and it worked great. As long as I was on a flat surface, indoors, and no incline. It had trouble on uneven sidewalks and would completely flip over on steep curves. There was a steep curve that led down to the mailroom in the basement of the mess hall in college. And more than a few times, because the thing really didn't have any brakes to speak of, I would zoom down the incline, hit the curve, and I would go one way, anything I was carrying would go the other way, and I would wind up having 8th period in the student health service. It did. The wheelchair, well, this wheelchair that I've been using now, finally got one of these, and they do really well, but I like to think there's an art to driving a wheelchair. You have to know where to aim your wheels when you're going over a crack or a bump, and you have to know how to use momentum to get over icy sidewalks. The biggest trouble I have is with construction and all the detours you have to get around because part of the sidewalk is closed off or whatever. Can we look at that motorcycle over there? That's a 750, isn't it? See, that's what I think of when I think of a motorcycle. It's huge. I would never be able to get on that thing. When I was in grad school, I got a little bit of assistance from the state. A very little bit of assistance from the state. No, they don't pay for everything. Yeah, that's what a lot of people think. Anyway, they decided that they wanted to rehabilitate me, and they figured that the best way to do that would be to make sure I got a driver's license. Even though I told them I didn't have money for a car, I didn't have money for insurance, I didn't have money for gas, but they told me I had to do it or they would close my account, my case. So they set me up with a referral agency. And the agency decided after evaluating me that really the only thing I needed help with was reaching the pedals. I could kind of steer and kind of move the turn signal and the gear shift. But the problem was that even though pedal extenders back then were very standard and very common, by law they had to be permanently attached to the vehicle. And this agency only had one vehicle that everybody used, so they couldn't modify it. So they modified me. They made a 6-inch thick block of wood and attached it with Velcro straps and metal clasps to the bottom of my right shoe. And for some reason, they only made one for the right shoe. I guess that's the only foot you need to use to drive, but that also meant that I couldn't even put it on until I was sitting in the car and somebody had to put it on me. It weighed about 10 pounds. And the first time I used it, I could kind of, but not really, find where the pedals were, but I managed to get the car in motion. And we drove around and around the parking lot at the agency. And the only way for me to actually use the steering wheel was to stretch all the way over on it, hands at 10 and 2 or 9 and 3 or whatever I could reach, and just kind of lay on top of it and hold on, which was great. Until I needed to check the rearview mirror. And because laying down on the steering wheel like this, my head was actually forward of the rearview mirror, so the only way that I could look where I was going backward was to strain my neck backward and kind of look over to the side like this and kind of sort of see where I was going. And we actually did that. We drove around the parking lot a few times. And finally, the instructor told me where to go, and I was pointed at the highway that ran past the driving facility. And he looked at me, and I didn't know what he wanted me to do, so I said, "What now?" "Go ahead." "On the highway?" "Yeah, go ahead." "But that's the highway." "Yeah, go ahead." "On the highway?" "Yes. Look both ways. When it's clear, go and go to the left. You're the expert." So I floored it. What did I know? And you know, rural highways in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, is not a bad way to learn how to drive. You can drive steady, it's not too crowded, there's hardly any other cars on the road. And after a few sessions of doing that, we started practicing the actual exam. And as my own personal inside joke, every maneuver we did, I did at the exact same place every single time. Parallel parking, uphill, downhill, in front of the exact same house, in front of the exact same school. And I'm sure the people must have wondered, there's that car again, Thursday at 2:30 in the afternoon. And look, yes, now they're leaving again. They must have wondered what the heck was going on. So I did that a few times, and then it came time to actually take the exam, and I got my license. And I never drove again. Not even back from the exam. But wait. So about 3 years later, my driver's license expires, and it comes time to renew it. And all I have to do to renew the driver's license is take an eye test, which I pass. So I get my driver's license, and, as some of you may have in this room, I got a lovely little good driving certificate. Well, since then, I've done a lot of thinking. A lot. And one thing I'm really good at is figuring things out. Imagining how I'd do something, running simulations in my head. And what I keep coming back to, what is just the simplest thing, what just feels right, is a motorcycle. Only this time, you're not gonna modify me. You're gonna modify the bike. Maybe chopper handlebars, narrowed a little bit maybe, extensions or an offset on the foot peg. We can get this to work. I've had this dream all my life. Hit the road, see where it takes me. So what do you say? Let's write that up. Let's write that offer. Oh, and one thing more. I'm gonna need a sidecar for my girlfriend.